Hello and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one-stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to another session of Economy this week, wherein we are going to cover important economy-related articles which have appeared in different newspapers from 11th to 17th December 2025. If you're liking the initiative, hit the like button. If you're yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Before I start, here is a very important announcement. In the UPSC Prelims, one of the very important areas within the subject of history is the laws made by the Britishers before independence. Abhishek sir will be taking a live session on 19th December 2025 starting 6 pm covering all these laws. Do not miss out, join the session live. Let me begin the discussion now. The first important article, Mexico announces tariffs. The government of Mexico has announced that starting 2026, there will be certain tariffs applicable on more than 1,400 product lines in the range of 5% to 50%. This announcement of the tariff is going to have an impact on even Indian exports, as India has a trade relation with Mexico, is also negotiating a trade agreement with Mexico. But what is the logic behind this announcement? Let's understand. First, very important reason is the fact that Mexico has a trade relation with China, and China has been exporting huge quantity as well as the value of cheaper goods, dumping them into the Mexican market. And this has actually led to a very high amount of a trade deficit exceeding more than $100 billion with China. In order to control the import of these cheaper products, these less costlier products into their market, the government of Mexico has announced tariffs. Second very important reason, in the last session that I took in the ETW, I discussed one very important article. The Chinese trade surplus for the first time ever, and amongst all the trading countries in the world, first country to have a trade surplus of $1 trillion. And one of the reasons they were able to manage this particular trade surplus despite government of USA announcing huge amount of a tariff was the fact that they diversified their exports. That is essentially, rather than exporting directly from China to USA, which would attract a lot of tariffs now, China diversified the production. Rather than exporting the final good, they manufactured to a certain extent within the Chinese market. They took the products to other countries such as African countries as well as Mexico and manufactured the final good in Mexico and then exported it to other markets including USA. As a result of this, the exports from China into Mexico has suddenly increased. And this particular route that has been used by China has now come into discussion. Many of the lawmakers, other trading partners have looked at it and they've threatened Mexico if they do not control it, they will be penalized or they will be targeted now. This is the second reason. Third very important reason is protection. Protecting the domestic manufacturing. In recent times, there have been a lot of issues in the global market. Their trading partner, USA, which has a trade agreement with Mexico as well as Canada, it has targeted the exports from Mexico. It has announced a very high amount of tariffs. It has threatened many other measures. In addition to this, there are multiple events that are happening in the global market which has created a lot of uncertainty as well as volatility for the companies present in the country. Now, in order to protect the domestic manufacturing units, the government of Mexico has announced tariffs. And the fourth very important reason, the government simply says we will be able to generate certain amount of revenues. The government of Mexico, by imposing tariffs in the range of 5% to 50%, will be able to generate certain amount of revenues. These are some of the very important reasons. And the fifth, which is not mentioned in many of the newspapers, understand this, Mexico is on the path to renegotiate basically the trade agreement which is already existing with USA. Like I said already, there is agreement which is existing between Canada, Mexico and USA, which replaced the earlier NAFTA. Now in 2026, there is expected or there is going to be a renegotiation of this particular trade agreement. So Mexico might use this particular threat of imposing tariffs as a negotiation tactic or negotiation chip during the negotiations. So these are some of the reasons why the country has announced a tariff. Now, what is the impact of this on India? Please have a look at the data here. India has trade relations with Mexico. A lot of Indian companies have invested. A lot of Indian companies, especially those involved in the car manufacturing, are involved with the trade with Mexico. The total amount of exports, $5.75 billion. The imports, $2.9 billion. This is essentially the size of the trade that India has with Mexico. And with the announcement of the tariff, lot of these exports would be affected. I told you one more point. More than 1,400 tariff lines or the product lines have been identified by the government of Mexico to impose tariff. And the tariffs are in the range of 5% to 50%. Right? So these are certain important points. What is the way forward now? Like I said earlier, the government of India is already negotiating a free trade agreement with Mexico. The negotiations must be speeded up and certain agreements regarding the tariff or the customs duties has to be arrived. And generally, whenever there are trade agreements are signed, there will be a lot of relief provided to the exports as well as imports in the form of reduction as well as elimination of tariffs. So these are certain important points associated with the first article. Now let's solve an MCQ. Those want to solve it on your own, pause the video, solve the question. If you don't want to do that, let me discuss, you simply listen. Consider the following statements. US, Mexico and Canada are party to USMCA signed in 2020. This particular statement is correct. This is basically the comprehensive trade agreement that I was referring to, which replaced NAFTA. The existing NAFTA was replaced by this, which came, right, or which was signed back in the year 2020. India has a trade agreement with Mexico. This statement is incorrect. Mexico has announced tariffs on all the imports from 2026. Underline the term all imports. It is not targeting all the imports, rather it is targeting specifically 1,400 plus product lines. So third statement incorrect. Of all the three, only one is correct. Right option will be option A. Let me go to the next article. Very recently in a summit, the finance minister announced that the next set of reforms announced by the government or will be brought in by the government will be associated with the customs overhaul. Now, what is the issue here? Listen to me very carefully. Very often you come across the argument that Indian exports are not competitive enough. Indian exports are not competitive enough. And manufacturing in India, compared to the global competitors, right, there is a certain lack in the competitiveness. In order to promote manufacturing, in order to promote exports from India, the government of India has implemented multiple reforms. For example, production linked incentive, PLI, production linked incentive. But in order to control or in order to protect the manufacturing entities, in order to protect these particular industries, historically India, and this is not just applicable to India by the way, many other countries use the same practice, that is they target the imports, impose very high amount of custom duties on the imports. And because you have imposed a very high amount of customs duties, the imports become costlier. The companies in their domestic market will find it easier to replace, substitute the import with a domestically manufactured product. But there are a lot of issues whenever a country follows this kind of a protectionist policy. It is a protectionist policy. In case of India, historically, yes, customs duties have been used. But post 1991, the government of India has been implementing LPG reforms. And as a part of multiple reforms announced under LPG, the government of India has made it easier to import. And that is visible when you look at what is the average tariff the government of India has been implementing between 2001 to 2016. The average tariffs actually reduced from 31.8% to 13.4%. It actually reduced. But because the government of India, in order to promote manufacturing in the domestic market through PLI, through Make in India, through Startup India, etc., it has started to target some of these particular products, impose a higher amount of a tariff that actually has led to increase in the average tariff from 13.4% to 16% currently. But having said so, let's have full clarity. Having said so, the government of India in the last two budgets, also has announced elimination of tariff lines or tariffs on 14 product lines. And the finance minister was very clear. She said, if there is more requirement of reducing or eliminating the customs duties on imports, we are willing to do that as well. So the next set of reforms will be in the customs duties. But why should the government do it? Why should the government undertake this particular reform? To make the system much more transparent, to make the system much more efficient, to ensure that the paperwork requirement in the system will be very, very negligible or remove the complete requirement, to reduce the human intervention in the whole process. Let's make the whole process faceless so that the human intervention will be very limited. The custom officials or other bureaucrats' intervention will be very limited, and the whole process will become faceless and seamless, very smooth process. But in addition to that, we need to have reforms in the customs duties because we are negotiating free trade agreements with many countries. We are negotiating FTAs with many countries. And when you negotiate FTAs, one of the areas where the negotiation will happen, where you will be forced to cut down, rationalize the tariff, will be customs. So government is negotiating the FTAs. Why not take this as an opportunity to show the intent, reform this particular customs duty structure? Second, the customs duty structure in case of India is very complicated. Very complicated. Lot of structures, lot of multiple, or for example, basic customs duties, additional customs duties, the cesses, etc. A lot of these are applicable. This will complicate the system. And when there is so much of complication, there is always a lot of delay associated with clearing these particular products because there is no clarity or there is a lot of confusion regarding the duties that the importer has to pay on this. There is also concern associated with inverted duty structure. Inverted duty structure, wherein on the imports, the tax rate or the customs duties is much, much higher compared to the tax that is applicable on the output. Right? So you need to rationalize this particular duty structure in order to address inverted duty. In fact, under the GST also, until very recently, there was this particular problem predominantly present under the GST structure. The government of India has made certain changes, addressed this particular issue by rationalizing the GST structure, by reducing the number of layers. And not to forget, when you have so many layers, when you have so much of a documentation, when you have delays, etc., all of this will add to increased cost. Higher the cost, higher will be the production cost. Higher will be the production cost, lower will be the export competitiveness. So these are some of the reasons why the government of India has to implement reforms under the customs duties. But more importantly, whenever the government of India makes a change in the customs duties, it is done under the Customs Tariff Act. It is done under the Customs Tariff Act. And generally, I'm saying generally the practice is in the budget, the changes are announced. But it's not compulsory that all the changes have to be done only in the budget. No. In the mid-year also, there have been multiple instances where the government of India, because it is required, because it is needed, has made changes to the tariffs or the customs as it is allowed until it is permissible under the law. So these are certain very important changes associated with this particular article. Now, based on this, right? Okay. Now let's go to the next article. CBDC versus stable coins. And very recently in a summit, the RBI deputy governor has raised certain concerns regarding the need for stable coins. Around the world right now, there is a rising trend, demand, usage of stable coins. What's the basic idea of a stable coin? These are the private currencies. These are the private currencies which are issued but having stable value. They have stable value, and in addition to that, these are backed by certain assets. It could be a dollar, because more than 95% of the stable coins are pegged with dollar or dollar based assets. Right, so these are backed with certain assets so that the value of the stable coin is maintained, is protected. And in recent times, there have been also multiple reports which show that with the government of USA passing Genius Act, allowing the issuance, regulation of the stable coins being done in USA, the utility or usage of the stable coins in the market has actually increased. But the Deputy Governor of Reserve Bank of India, Mr. T. Ravi Shankar, has raised serious concerns whether the stable coins will have any kind of utility in India. Whether they will have any kind of utility in India. What are the concerns raised by Mr. T. Ravi Shankar here? Let's understand one by one. He simply says the stable coins are private currencies issued by the private. Is there any kind of a sovereign guarantee associated with this? There is no sovereign guarantee. Whereas you take CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency, which is being promoted by RBI. So CBDC, it is basically nothing but a digital currency which has been introduced, promoted by RBI. Is it backed by a fiat currency? Yes. Is it backed by the RBI? Yes. So there is a authority which is held responsible in the context, which has given guarantee in the context of the CBDC. Where is the government guarantee in the context of stable coins? He simply says it is a matter of legal question whether at all anybody can held liable in the context of the stable coins. It is yet to be tested. The idea of a stable coin has emerged. It has been introduced very long time ago, but it has started gaining acceptance in recent times. There have been no instances so far where there have been issues with the guarantee of value of stable coins. If there are issues, will the private issuer will be held liable legally or not? We are yet to see. But Mr. T. Ravi Shankar says it is doubtful. So first very important reason why the stable coins are not preferred in India, rather CBDC is much better, much stable, is this. Second very important reason which he has cited is, in the context of stable coins, right, listen to this very carefully. In the context of the stable coins, right, there are a lot of systemic risks. There are a lot of systemic risks. Right? What is the meaning of it? The stable coins, right? The stable coins right now are said to be very easy in terms of cross-border transfers. Cross-border transfers. What if these particular stable coins which are issued by the private issuers are being transferred, which are not recorded, which are, let's say, manipulated by, let's say, certain terrorists, etc. So, and in addition to that, if these private issuers will keep on issuing these particular stable coins, and if they do not abide by the guidelines, if they do not keep any kind of assets because there is no, or there is a lack of oversight, etc., if there is any collapse, the whole financial system will suffer because of it. The whole financial system will suffer because of it. And not to forget, The deputy governor simply says, if I introduce stable coins, if I introduce stable coins in India, it will, or if I allow the introduction of stable coins in India, it will have an impact on monetary policy transmission. MPT, monetary policy transmission. What is the basic idea for monetary policy transmission? Whenever RBI changes interest rates, I repeat, whenever RBI changes interest rates, what is the impact of that on the lending activity? More and more loans are issued or lesser loans are issued? Will the money supply change? That is called as monetary policy transmission. So the contention is, if RBI's CBDC or the normal physical rupees are in circulation, along with that the stable coins are also issued. Now, when RBI changes interest rates, it is expecting certain type of a monetary policy transmission. But if it wants to reduce the money supply by changing the interest rate, but at the same point of time, there are more and more issuances of stable coins in India, don't you think the intended outcome of the monetary policy will not be achieved? So it becomes very difficult to achieve the objective because of the availability or the supply of stable coins. And not to forget, the RBI governor simply says, where is the space available for stable coins in India? One of the reasons the stable coins are preferred are ease, the ease of transfer, ease of payment, etc. But don't you think we have sufficient types of payment systems in India, which are real time, by the way, which are very easy, which is helping us to transfer funds in real time? For example, we have UPI, we have RTGS, we have NEFT, right? We have IMPS, etc. So different types of payment systems are already existing. Where is the space for the stable coins to operate in India? And he also looked at one particular argument, that is, a lot of times the stable coins are said to be very easy in terms of cross-border transfers. He said most of these particular stablecoin transactions are used in association with contracts associated in cryptocurrency market. The usage of that in the retail market is very negligible. Most of the transactions are associated for speculation in the cryptocurrency market. So these are some of the reasons which have been cited by Mr. T. Ravi Shankar, Deputy Governor of RBI, who argues that in India there is no place for stable coins. It is much better to use the CBDC if at all you are interested in using the digital currency. But having said so, he also accepted that there is one concern. What is the concern? The privacy concern. Privacy. In case of certain CBDCs, which can be programmed. For example, the government of India wants to issue certain CBDC for certain subsidy only. You are allowed to use the digital currency only for certain subsidy, right? Availing this kind of a subsidy. So now, who is using the currency? For what purpose? What is the name of the beneficiary? All of that can be easily, right, obtained by the government. So there is always a concern associated with the privacy in the case of the CBDC which are designed, which can be programmed for specific usage. He accepted that yes, there is a privacy concern there. So these are certain points. Now let's solve an MCQ associated with the discussion. Consider the following statements. The CBDC is backed by fiat currency. Yes, CBDC, not stable coins. CBDCs can be programmed for specific usage. Yes. And before I go forward, I said CBDC is backed by fiat currency, not stable coins. I said that because in the context of India, India has issued CBDC, that is RBI has issued CBDC. It is backed by fiat currency, not stable coins. Okay. Third, India is the only country where CBDC has been issued. No, there are many other countries where CBDC has been issued. For example, Nigeria, Bahamas, etc. Even in China, the pilot project has been implemented for CBDC. Out of 3 statements, 2 are correct. Right option for the question will be option B here. Next, India-Russia trade. Government identifies 300 items to bridge Russian trade gap. Now, what are the important points? In the recent times, the trade between India and Russia has increased. Until 21 and 22, the trade was very small. But because Russia attacked Ukraine and lot of sanctions were imposed by Western countries on Russia, the exports of these particular products or the goods to Indian market ballooned. These particular exports are mainly in the form of crude oil, which are available at a discounted price to India, fertilizer, as well as defense equipments. As a result of these particular imports, India's, right, let's say, India's trade with Russia has increased. It has ballooned. Today, the overall trade, right, for the financial year 25, the overall trade is around $69 billion. I'm rounding off the number, around $69 billion. But when you break up this particular trade numbers, you will realize that most of it is in the form of imports. India's exports to Russia are hardly around $5 billion, or hardly around $5 billion. So, when the president of Russia, Mr. Putin, visited India very recently, one of the points of discussion was how can we reduce this particular trade deficit? Because, mind you, back in the year 2024, India Russia have agreed to ensure that the total bilateral trade between both the countries will be $100 billion by 2030. According to the plan, they want to ensure the total bilateral trade will become $100 billion by 2030. But reaching the target, as important as it is, along with that, there is another very important issue here. There is one more very important aspect of it. India should ensure their exports to Russia will increase. What is the point of reaching the target of $100 billion, where $90 billion will be imports from Russia and $10 billion will be exported from India? It doesn't serve the purpose. So now the government of India has identified 300 items. They have identified 300 items, and using this particular list, they want to bridge the trade gap that is existing between India as well as Russia. Right? So this is another very important aspect of the relations between India and Russia. Please make a note of this. And when I say note, don't write it down. All you need to do is, after this particular session is uploaded in the YouTube, go to the description part of the video. There will be a link provided, Indian Economy Repository link. Click on that. You'll be taken to one more page. And in that particular page, you'll find all the links for the Economy This Week PPTs as well as the notes. Download, but more importantly, revise. Next article, World Inequality Report 2026. World Inequality Report 2026. Now, a lot of information has been dumped in the article. Should you remember all of it? Absolutely no. Simple points. Point number 1. This is published by World Inequality Lab. The World Inequality Report 2026, like earlier reports, right? This particular report has been published by World Inequality Lab. What does the report actually mention about India? It mentions that the inequality in India is the highest in the world. The inequality, the income inequality in India is highest in the world. How much? Please have a look at the data here. Do not memorize all the data. Simple. The inequality has been discussed on 3 accounts. One is income inequality. Second one is wealth inequality. And the third one is gender-based inequality. And in the context of all the 3, be it income, be it wealth, or be it gender, in case of India, the inequality is very high. In fact, the report flags that in case of India, the gender inequality can be understood by looking at what is the female labor force participation rate, LFPR. In the last 1 decade, the report simply states that the female LFPR has not changed by much, which simply is an indication to prove that sufficient participation of female workers is not there in the labor market, and that actually will lead to a rise in the income inequality. So what is the data that you need to remember? Right, the top 1%, let me magnify this so that it is visible to all of you. The top 1%, right, basically accounts for 22% of the total income. Let's round it off around 23%, around 40% of the total wealth. The top 10% accounts for 58% of the total income and 65% of the total wealth. And the bottom 50% accounts for 15% of the total income and 6.4% of total wealth. Please remember only this particular data. Where can you use this? In the mains examination, let's say there is a question on inclusive growth. There is a question, let's say, on inclusive growth. You're supposed to write certain data to prove that whether the inclusive growth has been achieved in India. Are we moving towards inclusive growth? What are the concerns, right, where government of India has to work, etc. So these are the areas that, or this is the data set that you can use to write a very effective answer. Right, so this is one update. Please make a note of this. Now, let's solve a MCQ. Straightforward, very simple MCQ. Which of the following publishes World Inequality Report? Straightforward, no difficulties in the question. Please don't make a mistake. Remember this, World Inequality Lab. Now, final article in this particular session. GST 80 state benches may miss December rollout as staffing infrastructure lag. What are the important points? Government of India implemented the GST from 1st July 2017. Now, despite implementing GST, right, there was one area of concern, that was if there is a dispute, how do we resolve the disputes? If there is a dispute between the taxpayer as well as the authority, how do we resolve it? Until very recently, there were different tribunals. For example, we have a CESTAT, we have service tax tribunals, etc. So now, Government of India, right, has basically announced one system, Appellate Tribunal for GST. Any kind of a dispute under GST between the taxpayer as the tax authority and the tax authority has to be taken care of under this particular system. But this was supposed to be operational, I repeat, operational in all the states by December 2025. The article simply says there is a lack of infrastructure, there is a lack of manpower. Because when you set up this particular tribunal, there are supposed to be 31 benches at the state level. When you set up these particular tribunals, there is requirement of certain members. There is a lack of appointment of these particular members, as a result of which there would be a likely delay in the implementation or the activity that was supposed to be started from next year in the form of appellate tribunals under GST. So this is just an update. This is in addition to what we have discussed in the last couple of months associated with GST Appellate Tribunal. So these are the various articles, the concepts, as well as the questions I wanted to discuss with you people, covering important articles from 11th to 17th December 2025. And I know some of you will be thinking, sir, there was an article regarding Manrega. You have not covered it. I have not covered it under the session because there's a separate video that I've already done. I don't want to repeat the same thing in this particular video. Do check out that particular video as well. If you have liked the discussion, hit the like button. If you're yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Thank you. Have a great day.